Hey, soul sister, welcome to another episode of Midlife Love Out Loud. Are you living out loud, sister? I hope you are, because that's what this is about. And of course, it's always about love and enhancing your love life. And it starts with you and how you do partnership. So today I have Joli Hamilton in the house, Dr. Joli Hamilton. So good to have you here, sister.
Thank you so much for having me, Junie. It's really a pleasure. I'm already super excited. Our pre-conversation even got me excited. So.
Me too. Me too. I'm thrilled actually, because you are bringing a topic that is so huge about jealousy and how to handle jealousy and what jealousy is and all that stuff, because people really struggle with jealousy and it impacts not only their happiness, but their relationships and so many things. Before we dive in, let me tell this soul sister who you are. Dr. Joli Hamilton is the relationship coach for couples who color outside the lines. She is a research psychologist, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and AASECT certified sex educator. Joli also hosts the Playing with the Fire podcast. I love that title, with her anchor partner, Ken. Joli's been featured in the New York Times, NPR, Vogue, and she spent the past 2 decades studying and reimagining what love can be if we open our imaginations to possibility. Joli helps people create non-monogamous partnerships that are custom built for their authentic selves. No more shrinking, pretending, or hiding required. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, let's dive in. So, relationship, excuse me, I didn't mean to say relationship. I meant to say research. You're a jealousy researcher. You've studied jealousy. What is jealousy research? Give us a little sense of like where you came from and how you landed where you are.
Yeah, it's such a strange specialty that I think it is nice to tell people, like, why in the world would anyone specialize in something that seems like it seems kind of tiny, right? It's just one specific emotion, and really one that most people hope doesn't come up very often. So yeah. I study jealousy in part because, like you said, I help people when they're transitioning from monogamy to non-monogamy. And a lot of people's top concern is jealousy. How will I deal with jealousy? But my backstory reason is that jealousy has been a part of my life and my relationships. And it was mostly subterranean for many, many, many decades. It was subterranean. I didn't even know that it was going on. And so when I made the shift to non-monogamy, I knew I had to start contending with it. And my way of dealing with things is to go to the books. So I started hitting the books, and that led to several psychology degrees, including a PhD. And what I have loved about studying jealousy is psyche definitely wants me to study jealousy. I accidentally tattooed the symbol, the kanji symbol for jealousy on my back. I talk about it everywhere I go. And when I talk about jealousy, what I notice is most people go, oh, okay, it's actually not what I thought it was. Yeah. It's something more. That's why I know this is the place I'm meant to be.
So what's the more? It's so much more than what I thought it would be. Why don't you take us to the core of what the frig is jealousy? Why do we have it? What are we doing? I mean, it's so unnerving, you know, when you're like, oh, what is jealousy?
So jealousy is a protective emotion, and it's designed to come up when we feel that there is a threat to our bond to a valued other, right? So I always tell people, if you want to know whether jealousy is going on, the first thing you're going to look for is there some kind of fear? Is there fear about a relationship? So now you've got yourself and you've got this beloved other. It might be a lover, but it could also just be a cherished friend or even a work colleague or a coach who you love dearly, right? And the fear comes because, boom, you can spot an interrupter, someone you imagine or who you see interrupting your love bond.
I love that interrupter. There's danger. There's something that's coming in.
Yeah. And there's the thing. We can spot jealousy by identifying the triangle. If I can see a triangle of people, then I know jealousy's here. Does it
Ah,
mean that it's the only emotion here? No, absolutely not, because jealousy is a complex emotion. It's made of other emotions. I mean, I've already said one, fear. Jealousy is about fearing the loss of a valued other.
yeah.
But jealousy also comes in a lot of flavors because jealousy has a glop of emotions. You might feel also sadness, anger, shame about jealousy because you shouldn't, great big air quotes, shouldn't feel jealousy.
I'm sorry, that was great. Big quotes.
Big ones, big ones.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Not to mention the fact that you may also feel anxiety, which isn't quite the same as fear, but it might be niggling at you. You
Yeah.
might feel grief. You might feel anticipatory grief, grief about something that hasn't even happened yet, but it's starting to well up in you.
Yeah.
And so jealousy is action packed, but it also tends to act like a wet blanket, right? It's both, people think of it as a fiery or hot emotion, and it is sometimes. If your jealousy happens to be anger flavored, right? If it's coming through bringing lots of rage, anger, and aggression, that outward facing, yeah, it might feel fiery. But jealousy also can look like that big wet blanket where we just feel sad, where we start to get lost in grief, where we start to lose ourselves in a downward shame spiral, where we get lost in fear and anxiety. And so studying jealousy, I've noticed that when people have different flavors of jealousy come up, or how they experience jealousy is different from their partner, it leads to some trouble because we don't even recognize that it's jealousy we're dealing with. And then we don't want to mention jealousy because, well, we've been told since we were very little that it's not cool to be jealous. And
Yeah.
I get it, like pro-social behavior. We want to train our little kids to share and be nice to each other. Totally get that. But researchers can spot jealousy in infants as young as 5 and 6 months old. 5 or 6 months old. It's about keeping myself connected to my primary caregiver, right? So it is a survival mechanism. It's there for a reason, which means when our next sibling comes along and they appear to be that interrupter, now we're frightened. We're terrified for a very real and pertinent reason.
Yeah.
Later, when we transition into adult relationships, we often transition our attachment habits into those relationships. And so now if jealousy comes up because I perceive an interrupter, I might act like a toddler. I might act like an infant. And it's real. Like, it's real. We could even say it may even be justified insofar as, yeah, the emotion's true. But then we have the messy next step. What do we do? Because jealousy itself is neutral. It's just an emotion. It's just information. But what you do next determines the course of your relationship over the coming days, weeks, or months.
Oh my God, let's stop there because there's a lot there that you
So
just like, oh my God. And I have a million things like running through my head and lots of my own going, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. So different flavors of jealousy. And you mentioned different feelings around it. And, as a shadow worker, somebody who's always looking at, what's the bag of history that you're bringing to the relationships. And I love that you said that when jealousy is triggered, that we go back into that little kid, because that's that primal, like, I need to be safe, I need to survive kind of mechanism there. And I think it's interesting that we might go to the anger, we might go to the wet blanket. I love that, and I think about, for me, in those moments of fear, I drop into the more of the wet blanket, because there's I'm not good enough. Am I going to be left? I'm scared that, that I'm going to be all alone and he might choose someone else. I mean, I remember these moments in the past where there was like, oh, there's that ex-girlfriend and he's talking to, like, I remember the rumination in the past where before I was able to really hold myself in that, okay, I'm a little anxious now, but in the past it was that wet blanket. But I could also see how people can go into the anger, again, with my shadow work lens on, because that anger could be the protector of that little girl that's really scared that there's something bad is going to happen. So are there certain personality traits that you see that go toward one versus the other? And how do you work with that?
Well, let's name something. There's always an elephant in the room when we're talking about jealousy, which is some studies, and I think most of our intuition, because we live in the real world, will tell us a lot of domestic violence has jealousy in its roots. So we have studies that show that somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of domestic violence reports have some element of jealousy reported. Like if you look at the actual language,
Makes sense.
jealousy.
Makes
And
sense.
as recently as the 80s, jealousy could be used as a defense when grievous bodily harm or murder was committed in some states. As recently as the 80s, like that's my lifetime right now, like there it is.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about that flavor of anger, we need to take it seriously, because that anger can turn into righteous anger.
Yep.
And so when I'm thinking about those folks, I'm thinking about people who tend to feel like they need a lot of control, but also have a deep lack of self-control, like understanding that they have agency and feeling like they have agency, right? And so in their shadow, they've got a lot of insecurity about their worth, but also their ability to make change in their life, their ability to negotiate for themselves, things like that.
Right.
Often they were
That's what they're
deeply
gonna like push against and really, like really stand up and go, yeah, and I get it. Yeah.
Exactly. Or they may be falling into some of those habits. They may be the kind of person who measures their self-worth by who they have on their arm. And so if they feel that they would be judged poorly by their social circle if their person strays, right, that also can turn into aggression.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I actually find a lot more people fall into jealousy in my world, in my experience, because I tend to work with people who have actually done a lot of work around anger and dealing with their anger. Like they're doing their emotion work, they're doing their shadow work. So they've got some tools for that. Great. But that doesn't stop jealousy from happening. And so often it shifts into this more sadness, this sense of, am I going to be okay? Like really, will I be okay? And in all of that too, you named another piece of it, envy, which is different from jealousy.
I'm so glad you brought it up, because people get those two confused.
Right. And it can live inside jealousy. So you said, what if I'll be alone? What if I'm not enough? Okay. So if I am a person who notices that my beloved is looking to someone else, or I see an interrupter coming in and I compare myself to that interrupter, now I have invited the potential for envy, because envy is about a dyad. It's about a pair. It's about me comparing myself to the other and finding myself wanting in some way.
Yes.
Even if my partner is not. This is all about my internal stuff.
Oh yeah. It may not even be happening at all over there, but because of the history, because of the wiring, because we don't want to be kicked out of the tribe and our nervous system is going, it all gets kicked out.
And as cisgender women, like we were trained to compete with each other. I was, at least, and all of my friends when I was in school, we all were. And so we were trained to compete for the affections of our partners. And so it's really easy to fall into envy. And I find that envy often also spirals down into that sadness, because and in a Jungian sense, so I studied Jungian psychology primarily, and in a Jungian sense, envy is a wound to the self. It's not just about insecurity. It's also about like a deep wound, like a sense that I am not worthy. I am not enough. And so now we have to do some real work on, who am I? And so all of that is living inside jealousy. No wonder we run from it, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, there's so much. And oh my God, how much this is amazing. I'm just thinking about the dating world, and the women were, putting ourselves out there. And I'm going to say we, because I recently let go of my significant other, consciously, beautifully, peacefully. With that said, my next is coming. And the dating realm is just filled with the potential of the compare and despair, AKA envy. Oh, she's going to look differently. Oh, he might like her better because she's thinner or younger, and so there's all this inner stuff that's going on with envy before they're even out the gate. And
Yes.
then they start dating, and then there's the triangle that's there all the time because they're still dating and questioning, am I safe? Do they want me? So what do we do? What do women do when they're dealing with all of that before they even meet their person?
Yeah. What a wonderful, let's sink into that image. Um, as a dating woman, it is so imperative that I do my personal work. And when I say that, I mean, it is broad, right? We are all going to have an individual path.
Yeah.
But I don't think I have ever met a woman who didn't need to continually address her self-image and that deeper layer of not just am I worthy, because you might have even done that. Let's say you got your shoulders back and you're there, you have arrived, especially in this second half of life. So I'm 46, so I feel like I have just graduated to second half of life stuff, and I love this. It's wonderful. But yep, we all have to deal with it because age is real and ageism in dating is real. So one of the keys for working with jealousy is to remember it is incredibly powerful and creative. So much of the time, jealousy is not about objective, real things happening in our dating life. It is about our imagination. We are so jealousy is, in fact, number one skill. If I really stop and consider it, it's about the imagination of the other. So monitoring your partner's social media feed to see who else is liking, noticing whether their texts happen to have other women's names popping up when you see them. A million ways. All of these are ways, or just listening for the names of other people in their in their conversation. All of these give you an entry point into imagining a person who is now in competition to you. And here's the bummer. It is such a distraction.
Oh, it's a distraction. It's an energy leaker, a soul sucking blah, and that's one of the reasons why when women work with me, we don't go right into the dating thing. Granted, if they have dating questions, that's totally fine, and I'll support them. With that said, I'm doing exactly what you're talking about. It's like, we need to work on what's going on between your ears and what's going on in your body so that you can navigate these crazy, potentially crazy waters. Because if we're bringing all of what you just shared to the table, looking at the social media and all of, oh my God, no wonder no one wants to date. That's why I'm like, let's get you calm inside. Let's have you know who you are inside and relax your own nervous system and give you some tools so that you can actually do this. So yeah.
That's it. So nervous system work is core to my method as well. Like if you don't have efficient nervous system tools for regulating, jealousy is going to be harder. But I want to address the imagination a little bit further, because when we have a great example, we have a wonderful example out there. We have a mythological example of what happens when we allow ourselves to be continually distracted by this other. The Greek mythology of Hera, right? She is the goddess of marriage, and she is also the goddess of jealousy. I actually have her, she's on my bookcase behind me because, of course, she goes everywhere with me.
Of course.
So Hera's main issue, right, is that Zeus is always out there doing whatever the heck he wants, taking his phallus wherever he wants and doing it all. And that is Zeus. Nothing's going to change about that, we know. But Hera takes an interesting tactic that we all recognize. She turns all of her attention to the other. So she turns them into cows, she blows them up, she sets them on fire. The plant, actually over my other shoulder, I named Io because Io is one of Hera's victims, right? Zeus seduces these others, and then she turns all her rage and wrath on the other, never returning her attention to Zeus, negotiating for what she wants. Now, this is fine. Hera's Hera. Hera gets to be one-sided. She's perfect in her one-sidedness because we need her to be acting this way as an example, as a pattern, as a universal pattern of human behavior. This happens, but it's ineffective. Does Zeus ever change? Does Hera ever not feel jealous? No. So we need to really recall, we need to recollect all of the projection that we've got out there, all the material that we're projecting onto that other, recollect it and allow ourselves to feed ourselves and turn our energy back to our partner. And if our partner can't make significant agreements that help us feel safe, that is a real problem.
Yeah.
But most of the time, we don't even negotiate those agreements.
Right.
We
They
expect the
don't
other to
even
get it.
know. Say again, I overlapped what you said.
We just expect our partner to protect us from jealousy, or we expect monogamy to protect us from jealousy. But I have bad news. I research in the polyamorous and the monogamous containers, and everyone feels jealous and everyone can be affected and impacted by jealousy. So your
Yeah.
relationship style won't protect you. We have to do the work of actually interacting with our partner and making jealousy a normal part of how we talk about relating.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh my God. Yes. And so I love that you brought that. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship you have, that this is something that we're going to deal with and experience. It's part of the journey, and bringing it back to the partner, bringing it back to, that person that you're in relationship with. So starting with us, like, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm experiencing this, I'm feeling that triangle, I'm seeing that triangle, and not making it about the other, but bringing in the energy, knowing what's going on, and then going, hey, honey, we need to have a conversation, and I want to hear your perspective on this, of course, because you are my guest here, and brilliant, I might say. I'm so excited to have you here. Oh my God, I'm so excited. The thing is that unless we share what's going on inside of us, our partners don't know.
Right.
And I'm just going to, before I give you my thing, if I even do, because you probably are going to hit it, I can see that jealousy is an opportunity to bring people closer and to heal to some extent. I'm wondering, how do we do that? You experience it. Okay. And let's bring it into the dating realm. So let's just say they're starting to date somebody, they're starting to connect with somebody, and they go, we've been dating for a month. I'm really feeling close to this person. I'm starting to feel some stuff. And what might you say to this soul sister that's struggling with this aspect?
Yeah. So first off, yes, jealousy is absolutely an opportunity for deeper intimacy, and it itself is neutral. It's what we do next. So awesome. We're down the right path. If you are experiencing those jealousy sensations, right? That's the first step. The framework that I identified in my research that it differentiates people who are dealing successfully with jealousy from people who are really struggling and they're kind of in the mire and they're constantly in the cycle of like, I feel jealousy and I don't know what to do about it. There is a difference. So the first thing is you have to be able to notice it. So I need you. Yeah,
this is happening.
and not just in your head. I need you to know what the sensations in your body are. So people describe things like clenching, tightening, constricting. They'll often point to their throat or their chest and their stomach, and they'll say, it just feels, and then they'll describe. Once you know, and you can do that right now, just think about the last time you were jealous.
I mean, for me, it's my third chakra, like my solar plexus. It feels like a gut punch. It feels like,
Yeah. And I get tingles down the back of my neck, like my spidey sense goes off. So everybody's different. Know what your signals are, because the sooner you identify that jealousy is at play, so you look for the triangle and you notice the signals. If you've got those two signals, awesome. Great. Let's act as if jealousy is present, even if you're not sure, because the next steps are useful regardless of what's going on. Because the next step is simply to name all the other emotions that jealousy's brought with it. What flavor is it? How is it showing up? Because if yours is aggressive, now you might not be punching people, but are you being passive aggressive? Are you now not responding to texts? Are you now maybe playing a little hard to get when, wait, is that actually how you mean to be showing up in dating? I don't know. Are you being mindful about your communication? After that, now we get into the tough stuff. There are 3 more steps, and they're simple to say, but not easy for everybody to do. The first is I need to notice what my story is. What's the narrative of jealousy? What does it mean about my relationship? What does it mean about my self-worth? What does it mean about my worth in
Yeah.
this relationship? Because that's all inside work. I don't actually need my partner's help. My jealousy is mine. I get to do the work from the inside.
Yeah.
That's helpful. And now we get to navigating your needs. If you don't know how to talk to your partner about what you need, jealousy will be really, really hard. Most people need a combination of reassurance, clarification. Sometimes jealousy is a signal that, oh, it's time to have to define the relationship talk.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay. I need to know, what are we doing here? Sometimes jealousy is showing up because we actually have really clear signs that this is not the right person. We're getting very clear signs that they will not meet our needs. And so instead of asking for our needs to be met, we don't, because we might find out that they won't be. So the navigating needs part, that's the big one. And I say, go find a coach who can help you with that, because that is the moment. And if you can learn that skill, then all the rest of your negotiation, all the rest of your relationship will go better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the fifth step is it's awesome, but it is also aspirational. The fifth step is nurturing compersion. And compersion is a word mostly heard in polyamory because it was coined by polyamorous, but
I was just gonna say, I don't know that word.
yeah. So compersion means the feeling wholehearted joy for your partner's joy, feeling truly deeply happy for them. Now, compersion's easy. If you imagine watching a little kid eat an ice cream cone and you're dairy intolerant, you're like, I feel happy for them and I don't need that. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Now, when it's your partner flirting with somebody across the room, can you feel happy for that? Do you even want to?
Yeah.
Some of us want to nurture that feeling. Some of us are like, that is a big no-no in our relationship. The reason I include compersion as one of the steps of dealing with jealousy is many times we are hoping to limit our partner's contact with other people rather than actually building trusting relationships where we know they're not flirting, they're sharing a deep conversation about something they care about. Can I trust my partner and therefore empathize with their joy and be so happy about it?
And not take it personally and not see it as a threat.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. And that big word trust, because I think that's where people get tripped up a little bit. If they don't know how to speak cleanly and they're not able to go, hey, honey, I've been working with, feeling some stuff I need to share. And how they share it, depending on how they share it, their partner might take offense. Their partner might be like, you don't trust me? How can you feel jealous? And then they're negated. Their feelings are negated. Then they go on the defense. Then they start going, well, maybe I really shouldn't trust you if you're getting so defensive. What is that about? So how is there a certain way you would suggest opening up that dialogue with, hey, honey, I'm noticing some feelings around here, and any magic words you might say?
The first thing, and this is super important, and when people do this, the whole picture gets different. Start talking about jealousy as a meta conversation. Before you're experiencing jealousy, introduce talking about jealousy in your relationship as a normal thing. You can talk about jealousy you see in movies. You can just externalize it totally, watch it.
Best way.
Have a conversation. You could talk about jealousy that you've had in the past, or jealousy that you've experienced and then maybe grown from, especially something that you've grown from. Talk about how did you deal with that? You can also talk about jealousy because you've heard a podcast on it and you're like, whoa, this is clearly something I need to work on because I usually end relationships, or I usually do this. I usually take this action. I want to do it different. Hey, let's listen to this podcast and then have a conversation about jealousy rather than a conversation about my partner's actions.
Yeah.
Because most of us, when we feel jealous, we point our fingers outwards and we say, you change your behavior so I stop feeling.
Yeah, you did this and now I feel, and
and that's just ineffective. It's ineffective because in the big picture of things, we need to take responsibility for the fact that the jealousy is ours.
Yeah.
We may have legitimate, objective reasons that do need to be dealt with, but lots of jealousy doesn't, for one thing. And even if we do, the jealousy is still ours.
Yes.
It's ours. So we don't need to wait for our partner to do a different thing to start working on it, which is so freeing. It's so liberating to recognize I can
Oh,
start working on jealousy today. Do not need to wait.
wow. Oh, so good. So good. So good. So much there. Love it. Love it. I know you have a free gift for this soul sister. It is 5 relationship guides. What are the 5 relationship guides gift?
So the guides are great. And the reason I chose this is because in the guides, I mean, there are some great conversations. There's one called, what is sex? There's a wonderful conversation, a guided conversation. There's one about how to get better relationship satisfaction. Those are great. But the reason you really want to go grab these is that the jealousy guide is in there. And the jealousy guide is a really simple breakdown of exactly what I just walked through. The 5-part framework for these are the steps we need to work through. And you could even just take that book. There are just some generative questions to ask yourself and say, if jealousy is coming up, I can start there. So download the guide. You'll have it all in front of you. You can work through those questions and then have that meta conversation with your current dating partner or partners and see where that goes, because you may find that the conversation about jealousy transforms how you talk about so many other tender topics.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. And I just want to add that when we have these conversations and we can do it in a way that's honoring our truth and not throwing somebody else under the bus, that builds intimacy, that builds connection, because there's nothing more beautiful than somebody sharing their heart and going, I really like you and I'm really loving how we are. And I'm noticing this feeling and I'm needing to share this with you because, and however we say it. And it's the opportunity for someone to really have a really deep connection and conversation. I love that you're giving these guides to this woman. So awesome. We will put it in the show notes. Any last words before we close for today?
Let me close with this. First off, you can grab the guides at Listen to Joli. So it's also just easy. Yay. And I just want everybody to take a bit of grace for themselves. If jealousy has been a huge factor in your life and you're like, why didn't I know this before? Me either, sister. Me either. Yeah. That's why I got a whole darn PhD studying this.
Let's take a breath into that. There's nothing wrong with us. You've done nothing wrong. We've done nothing wrong. This is part of the journey. And now we know more. And there are things that we can do to grab those reins and feel better about this very natural occurrence. Yes. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. This was amazing. And soul sister, I know you got a ton out of this. Oh my God. I hope you were writing a whole bunch down and grabbing her 5 guys. Like I said, the link is there, but listen to Joli, JOLI.com. You could find it there. And I know 100% that you got value out of this. I know that you did, because this is like such a huge topic that we haven't had. Think about one soul sister that might need this message too. And please, I invite you to share it. That's how we help our sisters out. We rise up. We have healthier, beautiful relationships with others and especially to ourselves. So like, subscribe, share, and until we meet again. Mwah!